tonight. We're really glad and grateful that they were all able to come up here to this little old county we call Alleghany. Our next guest speaker is famous for not only his voice, but his stances on important political, social, and economic issues. Radio talk show and fellow patriot Rick Johnson from Paul Revere Radio. Who's that guy he's talking about? Do you remember in high school when you used to let the ugly guy hang out with you just to make you look better? Brandon, thank you for letting me come here today to make Dan Forrest, Mr. Dan, or Dr. Dan, Major Dave, and Richard look a lot better tonight. I do appreciate that. You know, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about. And some of you have heard my voice on the radio, some of you have heard me on WSIC in Statesville, but the most important communication we do is one-on-one. And I have people tell me all the time, because I'm doing a veterans show down at WSIC now, and I'm going to all these different veterans and I'm asking, could you come talk on the show for me? And they're more than willing to talk face to face, but man, you put one of these in front of them, and they're like, well, I don't know, you know. I took a pistol in Vietnam and crawled down in a rat hole and met guys face to face, but that microphone scares me. I don't know if I could do that. You can do it, and we're going to need you to do it. There's nothing special about the ability to just sit and talk with your friends and neighbors, and that's what we're doing tonight. Like Paul Revere, we're taking information and we're passing it on to our friends and neighbors. And one of the things we say on the show all the time is, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and now 3 if by government. And I think we're being overrun with 3 if by government. I had about 45 pages when Brandon first asked me to speak tonight. Yeah, I would drop it too. I'd be worried about that. But Dan and others and Dave already spoke about most of the things I really wanted to cover. And that tells me something. First of all, it means we're all on the same page together. Agenda 121, critical. Absolutely critical. Our ability to get our Congress in line with our needs. We're on top of the pyramid. We should be the foundational element of all government. We're the person who should be. Anybody heard of Mel Watts? I live in his district. Now yeah, me too. And I'm hoping that's going to change. But when I first got to that district, I moved back to North Carolina about 2 years ago, and I started calling. And I got through, and I spoke, and then a couple of other times I got through, and I didn't speak quite as much because they cut me off. And now when I call, they don't answer. That's what it should happen every time your number pops up on their phone. They should look at the phone and say, "Oh crap, it's that guy again." Now there's some of you out there, you're on Facebook and other places. I know that's exactly what you're doing. But a lot of us have the idea that these elected officials know everything there is to know, and they don't listen to us. I'm telling you, that's not true. That's not true. They listen to the squeakiest wheel, and we need to become the squeakiest wheel. The problem we have today is apathy. And unfortunately, it's a disease. Now, you've probably heard this, and let me read it to you. From bondage to spiritual faith. From spiritual faith to great courage. From courage to liberty. From liberty to abundance. From abundance to complacency. From complacency to apathy. And from apathy to dependence. And from dependence back into bondage. Now, I know you've probably heard that before, but think about it for a minute. Where would you place yourself in this scale 30 years ago? Now, I know most of you don't admit you were even thinking politically 30 years ago, but that's okay. 30 years ago, I think most of us would have said, very possibly, we were in abundance. Very possibly. How quickly did it take to go from abundance to complacency? Complacency then to apathy. And now, personally, I believe we're in dependence as a nation, and we're headed very, very quickly back to bondage. What's the statistic now of the number of people who are totally dependent on the federal government? Is it 42%? 47? Okay, so it went up 5% in the last 2 days. It's going up every day. And I'm meeting people I'm standing here as a disabled veteran, and I'm meeting disabled veterans every day who are out there working. Guys that have legs missing, and they're building homes for other veterans. If you've ever heard of Purple Heart Homes, anybody heard of Purple Heart Homes? This is what they do. They help, and they're working. But I'm also meeting a different class of people. People who have never worked a day in their life, 100% disabled. And I know an example of a guy, 100% disabled, plays golf 3 to 5 days a week. When I was teaching high school, I asked the kids, I said, what's going to happen? Because the school I was at was a very, very, very poor school district. I said, what's going to happen? Because most of these kids were 3rd and 4th generation welfare. I said, we're broke. The government is flat broke. Now, you pull toilet paper out and hold it up to a $1 bill, and you just about have the same thing. What's going to happen when the government says, sorry, can't send you a check anymore? You know what this kid said to me? He looked me dead in the eye and said, I'm going to come take yours. You know what I told him? Hope you can dodge lead. And he looked at me like, what? I said, oh yeah, it's mine for a reason. I worked for it. I earned it. And it's even getting hard now to teach kids that there is joy, there is accomplishment in working and breaking a sweat and getting paid 50 cents for it. We move a lot, probably because we're on the run a lot. But my family has moved, I personally have moved, on average, we figured up one time, every 3 years my entire life. I grew up in an Air Force family. At 18 or 19, I joined the Air Force, did another 20 years myself, got out, taught ROTC, moved time to time to different school districts, and now I've been where I'm at now about 2 years, and guess what? Getting the itch. Time to move. I got these anchors though. Everybody heard of these anchors that are out there now? They're called grandkids. Yeah, the grandkids might actually put a stop to that. But when we were moving a lot, and I was working in high school, I offered kids, hey, could you help me pack? I'll pay you a couple bucks. How many kids we ever get to come help? One? And this kid worked. And that's good to see. But we have a generation that's not willing to work. And that's part of that apathy. So how do we correct the problem? Our federal government is tyrannical. Sorry. I didn't believe it 15, 20 years ago. I'll say it now. I say it and I believe it. It's bloated and non-responsive to the will of the people. I'm convinced we'll never be able to fix a problem from inside the federal government. That's like taking a car that the engine's laying out in pieces in the road and saying, well, if I put new bumpers on it, I think it'll work. No. Our federal government today, I just think it's so overblown and so bloated and just gone. Now, there are some good people in the federal government. There really are. But they're the odd person out. So I think we have to work from the bottom up. And that's what the Tea Party's about. And other groups, I've met groups that are out there that are not Tea Party, and I know sometimes we think if you're not a Tea Party member, by golly, you're just not part of us. But there are other groups out there that aren't Tea Party, that are still working for the same cause. This is where we're going to fix this problem if it gets fixed. If it gets fixed. Concerted citizens got to get off the couch and get into the arena. We must saturate the local level political system with strong, well-versed, constitutionally minded citizens. Now, how do we get them? Things like this, for one. Major Dave brought mine too. People walking, oh, is that a Bible? No, that's in this pocket. Oh, by the way, I forgot, I was going to show you, just to prove who I am, this is my state-issued voter ID card. No, wait. Okay, maybe I don't have one. But we need them. Common sense needs to take over in our country. Unfortunately, we have to push that common sense from the bottom up again. We have to push it. We also have to ensure that constitutionally-minded, strong-willed sheriffs are in each county. You need to go to your county sheriff and ask him, who is the highest-ranking legal authority in this county? And if he doesn't grin and go, you need to vote him out, or her, whoever it might be. Maybe they don't even know their Constitution mandated requirements, but they are the highest legal law authority in that state. And out in the western states, you're starting to see sheriffs who are going to federal agencies and saying, nice to know you, get out. Well, you can't tell us to leave. We're the federal government. Want to bet? Watch. And they're doing it. They're removing them from the counties. You can come back in if you fall under the Constitution and you're actually doing constitutional work. If you're not, just go away. And hopefully let's move in this direction. But it is taking place in some of the western states. Last thing that I think we have to do to turn this battleship is we have to get churches to stop fearing the loss of their tax-exempt status. Churches and pastors have to start fighting the good fight of politics as well as evangelism. For too many decades, we've listened to those who said the church must not get involved in the government. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher up in the mountains in Tennessee. He actually rode a mule from church to church to church. And I think I just stood too close behind the mule a couple of times. But he said preachers shouldn't get involved in politics. And that's just the way they felt in the 40s and 50s. But I think the reason behind that was because they felt like they were electing good, God-fearing individuals to political office. And so the church could do what it does with the safe assurance that they put good people in political positions. Can't say we're doing that as much today. I'd love to say that everybody we send to D.C. and everybody we send to Raleigh is God-fearing and constitutionally minded. And that ought to be our job to put those people in those positions. But we've probably slacked off a little bit. We need to get back to work. The church has got to get out of the pews and get into the arena just like everybody else. And if that means that you lose your tax-exempt status, so be it. If that means you can't pay your bills and you lose that multi-million-dollar building, oh well. I lived in a country, a Muslim country, where 99.98% of the country was non-Christian. And to stand in that country and declare Christianity meant death. No churches, buildings, no pews, no stained glass, no hymnals, very few Bibles, strongest Christians I've ever met in my life. Because it counted for something. I hear people here all the time, oh, I've been suffering for Jesus. I'm like, really? What happened? Well, down at the beauty parlor, they made fun of me because I was singing off key in the hymn, you know. Really? Singing off key? I can't imagine. Corrie ten Boom, before she died, was giving a speech to a college, and a young Christian lady asked her, what do you pray for? She kind of stopped for a minute, looked up, shook her head no, looked down, shook her head no again, like, God, I don't want to sell this. Finally, she took a breath and she said, I pray for the church in America to come under intense persecution. Because when that happens, then the true church will emerge, the chaff will burn off, and we can get on with business. I think it's coming. I don't know exactly how to prepare for it other than just say, you know, get ready. I want to get a bumper sticker made that says, purchase more beans, Bibles, and bullets. That might be a plan. I'm not real sure yet. Institutions and political parties aren't going to change the course of America. But grave movements have changed the course of nations and will change them again. Rejecting apathy and trusting in God and a firm belief in human dignity and our God-given rights, this country can reignite the torch of liberty once again. It's going to be hard. It's a challenge. But God has always put people in a position. Dan talked about Chuck Colson and how his ministry, his prison ministry, was such a fabulous ministry. And I heard on the radio recently, Chuck Colson would never have had that ministry if he had not spent 7 months in prison. God takes what he can, uses what you got, and goes from there. And I think that is how we're going to take this back if we all get involved. Use what you got. People say, well, you got a great radio voice. That's right. Got a face for radio. Use what you got. Some of us can speak in public. Some of us do a lot better than others. Well, I wish I was a PowerPoint wizard. I just go right to it. Others need to get around the coffee table with some friends and just talk it out. Some of you are Facebook demons. That's a good place to make the challenge. But you got to get involved.